All right, so my name is Trudy Giorgio. I work for the ABA Study Guide, and we provide RBT and DCBA test support, one-on-one tutoring, and live instructions. So today we're going to talk about differential reinforcement. All right, so definition of differential reinforcement. Differential reinforcement is a procedure that involves two important parts. The first one is that reinforcement is contingent upon the occurrence of a behavior other than the challenging behavior, or challenging behavior is occurring at a reduced rate, okay? So it's either some behavior that's happening that's not the behavior that we're trying to decrease, or we're just actually looking at changing the rate of the behavior. And the second part is withholding reinforcement, which is AKA for extinction, for the challenging behavior. Now, a lot of our literature that we learn talks about differential reinforcement always involving extinction. However, there's some support that differential reinforcement can also work as long as there's reduced reinforcement for the challenging behavior, excuse me. So an example that I like to have here is my mom always called me by my name as well as my sister's names. And usually I didn't respond to her. So I put Trudy, Joey, Abby, Joey, Trudy. I put the other names on extinction. But every once in a while I would just respond to her, but it was still at a reduced rate. Okay, so in the real world, we may not be able to put behavior always on extinction, but we try. Of course, it's more effective if we have true extinction, but it can be for challenging behavior that's being reinforced at a reduced rate of reinforcement, okay? However, going forward, I'm just going to talk about withholding reinforcement or extinction. So differential reinforcement, as we know, is a popular and effective strategy. How many of you in your clinical work or school work, or maybe your parents working with children, have used any of our differential reinforcement procedures, and which ones? We have a lot of DRAs and some DRIs. Okay, DRAs are probably our most common. And we have one DRL. Okay, cool. All right, so differential reinforcement is also a shaping technique where you shape a response by reinforcing certain behaviors and withholding reinforcement for others. So differential reinforcement has two effects. Responses similar to those that have been reinforced occur with a greater frequency, and responses similar to the unreinforced members are emitted less frequently. So if you're trying to reinforce a certain behavior, responses similar that have been reinforced are going to continue to occur because something similar has been reinforced. The responses that we're trying to decrease, the extinction, the behaviors on extinction, or the unreinforced members start to be emitted less frequently. Okay, so an example is shaping vocal approximations. I have used done a lot of vocal verbal behavior shaping, and differential reinforcement for shaping vocal verbal behavior is very, very effective. So here's an example of that. The picture here is an example of the Kaufman and Casper, the K&K cards, the Assigned to Talk program. So this is a shaping process that begins with reinforcement of responses in the learner's current repertoire that share an important topographical feature with the final terminal behavior. So if I had a learner who was reinforced by bubbles and he could say ba, or he had the B sound or the BU sound in his repertoire, I might start there. So all of these sounds have in his repertoire have a common topographical feature, which is the ba sound. And that is similar to the final terminal behavior, which is obviously bubbles. So your practitioner is using the differential reinforcement procedure We'll use shaping to differentially reinforce responses as the criterion gradually changes, which is actually those successive approximations. So in this example, the "but" is the first approximation that we require, or the first criterion for reinforcement. And then we might require only "ba," "ba," then "bo," "bo," then "ba," "bo," then, or "ba," "o," then "ba," "bo," then "ba," "bubbles," then "bubbles." So we're moving from the bottom to the top. Okay, this should be individualized, of course, and if you have any questions about this, you might want to speak to your supervisor or someone in the mentorship and ask how this works. This is just a good example of what the successive approximations look like. All right, couple different types. We have 6 types. We have our DRH, which is differential reinforcement of high rates of behavior. DRI is differential reinforcement of incompatible behavior. DRL is low rates of responding. DRO is other behavior, and we'll talk about this more, but I prefer omission training for DRO. Okay. Then we have DRA, which is reinforcement of alternative behavior, and DRD, which is diminishing rates of responding. From what I understand, DRD is not on the RBT exam, but I put it in here anyway because I think it's important information. All right, first one, DRH. So our differential reinforcement of high rates of behavior is a schedule of reinforcement. So all of our DRs are schedules of reinforcement. It tells us the contingency upon when reinforcement is delivered, typically when and for which behaviors, which occurrence or non-occurrence of behaviors. So for DRH, since we're looking at rates of behavior, reinforcement is contingent upon the number of responses within a time frame exceeding a predetermined criterion. So example here, let's just say stickers are the reinforcers, or the potential reinforcers. We are going to try to increase the rate of math problems completed during a 40-minute class. So if Johnny currently answers 10 math questions in 40 minutes, his teacher uses what type of differential reinforcement to increase this to 20 math questions per 40 minutes? So in the chat box, privately to me, so we don't have any observer reactivity, tell me what the answer is. Is it DRO, DRH, DRL, or DRA? Johnny's starting with 10 math questions, and we want to increase it to 20. Yeah, you got it. DRH. High rates of behavior. These are pretty easy. If you see any question that has to do with increase rate of responding, it's typically going to be your DRH. You all got it. All right, so next one, we have our DRI. DRIs are one of my favorites. I think they're a lot of fun. This is reinforcement of behaviors which are incompatible with behaviors or inappropriate behaviors that are behaviors that the individual can't do simultaneously. So if I want to decrease the rate of inappropriate touching of peers, my favorite here, I work with a lot of younger children, a lot of boys that might do some self-touching where their hands are always in their pants, right? What's incompatible? Hands in the pocket. Right? Teach hands in the pocket, reinforce hands in the pocket, make up a song about it, deliver stickers for appropriate hands in the pocket. It's incompatible. You can't do both. It's a real easy one for something that's a very social significant problem in school, right? Can anybody give me another example of a DRI that you've used? I find that these are not used as much, but they can be very, very effective. Example here is going to be Johnny is constantly touching his classmates during circle time. So we know that kid, his hands are wandering. It's maybe attention seeking. It's maybe he's engaging in some self-stimulatory behavior and he ends up touching other kids because he's, doing what he's doing. So we teach him as a DRI to reinforce keeping his hands in his lap. So we set a rule or a contingency, hands in the lap, deliver stickers upon our DRI schedule. Upon our schedule, what type of differential reinforcement procedure? Good. We have Shannon says clapping hands versus spanking bottoms. Was this child or individual spanking other people's bottoms? So you taught him clap their hands. And then Regina has a great example where she had students who like to pick at their skins. She'd give them some sort of like a fidget or squishy toy or something to keep their hands busy so they can't pinch themselves while using those. That might be a DRI procedure. Okay, so we have another one. When I'm speeding and I see a cop pulled someone over else, I continue speeding because the DRI tells me he can't write and catch me at the same time. Okay, so we're looking, when you're looking at a DRI, you might be understanding some sort of rule that it's incompatible for him to do both. But what happens, are you reinforcing that behavior? Because when we're using differential reinforcement as a shaping procedure, we have to be delivering reinforcement for the occurrence of the incompatible behavior, right? All right, cool. Okay, and so DRI. Next one is going to be DRs of low rates of behavior. So for this one, our DRL is going to be scheduled reinforcement, in which reinforcement is contingent upon the number of responses within a time frame not exceeding a predetermined continuum criterion. So exactly the same as DRH, except lowering the rates of behavior. So if he is constantly calling out during circle time, we want to reinforce him for remaining focused and quiet. So a lower rate of calling out. Which one are we using? A DRO, DRH, DRL, or DRI. So Johnny calls out, his baseline was 10 times in a 40-minute circle time. Now he calls out 5 times, he gets a sticker. We embed choice, we let him pick whichever sticker he wants, we slowly decrease the interval and reduce it that way. So important thing to know is for our DRLs, we are trying to lower a rate of behavior but not eliminate it. For this example, children call out during circle time, right? Sometimes we want them to. We say, hey, how's everybody doing? And everybody calls out. So we would choose a DRL because we don't want to totally omit this behavior. We just want to lower it, okay? Okay, so that takes us to DRO, differential reinforcement of other behaviors. So I prefer to call this or refer to this as omission training. So what I'm doing is I'm basically reinforcing not that. Okay, I'm not reinforcing a specific other behavior. I'm just reinforcing not the behavior I don't want to see. So for Johnny, if he's crying, I'm just going to reinforce not crying. The problem here maybe he might be hitting, but that's okay. He's not crying. You choose the behavior or behaviors we want to omit, and we reinforce the absence of those behaviors. This is an instrumental conditioning procedure in which a positive reinforcement is periodically delivered if the individual does something other than the target response. So this is sometimes hard for our staff or RBTs to do because, you may be reinforcing another behavior that you don't love, but if you're trying to do a DRO for one particular behavior, just reinforce not that behavior. We're not trying to teach an alternate behavior, we're just trying to reduce the one target or target class, or response class. So Johnny cries during circle time. He is reinforced for omitting any behavior besides crying during this activity. What type of differential reinforcement is being used? We are using a DRO procedure. This is omission training. We are training him to omit or to totally get rid of crying. Different from DRL because we're trying to totally get rid of it. Crying during circle time is not appropriate. Call outs may be, okay? That's just if you were to choose which one to use. All right, now DRAs, as we mentioned earlier, are probably our most common. How many of you have worked on functional communication training or different types of FCT, manding, other kinds of verbal programs where you teach communication? And that can be through the vocal verbal behavior, PAC, sign, pointing, whatever it may be. Different typographies, of course, same function, which is communication. Great, Helene has. This is a hallmark a lot of our early behavior interventions, especially for children for autism. So, FCT is technically a DRI procedure. It's reinforcement for behaviors which serve as alternatives for problem or appropriate behavior, especially alternative means of communication. So, if instead of engaging in maladaptive behavior to access a break, I might teach them to hand the teacher a PEX icon for an alternative way to access that same reinforcer, which happens to be escape. Okay. Regina made a good point that there are maybe some questions that talk about something that might seem like a DRA and a DRI. So remember, DRI, it could be an alternate, but most importantly, it's incompatible. So the example about spanking bottom and clapping hands, you need to make sure, is it physically incompatible? It could be a DRI, but maybe that you're teaching them another way to get attention, right? Is spanking the bottom a way to get attention and you teach clapping an alternate way to get attention? That's technically your DRA. Okay, incompatible just means you can't do both, but it doesn't have to have the same function. It technically does not. Your alternate behaviors could be incompatible, but more importantly, it gets you what you want in a more appropriate alternative way. Please let me know if you have any questions about that. An example, Johnny cries during circle time because he wants to be the weather helper. He is reinforced by raising his hand to participate during this activity. So that you could say this is a tangible condition. He wants socially mediated positive reinforcement in the form of being weather helper. What type of differential reinforcement is being used? We have DRO, DRA, DRL, and DRI. All right, super. So the answer is DRA. It's an alternate means. Okay, so for your RBT, exam, for those of you who are looking to take that, don't focus too much on this, but I think it's important to learn about. DRD is differential reinforcement of diminishing rates of responding, or DRD. So this is similar to DRL. But this is a schedule that provides reinforcement when the number of responses in a specified time period is less than or equal to a prescribed limit. So we're not trying to decrease behavior. We are trying to decrease it, but not eliminate it. But it has to do with your time component, the number of responses in a specified time period. So a child could be taught to slow down his homework completion behavior. For your DRD, she would earn a sticker after completing 5 problems in 3 minutes. I've used this a lot for students who eat really fast or do homework really fast or do something really fast in a specified period of time in which they're like rushing through something. So eating snack too quickly could be dangerous. It could also be socially inappropriate. When he's reinforced for eating a certain number of bites during a certain interval during the time period. So what would that be for Johnny? Is this DRO, DRA, DRL, or DRD? Great, so it is a DRD. So for you students that are maybe looking for the BCB exam down the road, just remember a DRL and DRD are different, basically in that there's a specified time period. With DRL, you're just trying to lower the rates. All right, so let's do some questions. Number 1, which is the only type of DR in which reinforcers are received when challenging behavior has not been displayed? We have A, DRO, B, DRA, C, DRD, and number 4, DRL. Okay, looks like pretty much everybody put DRO. So well done. I'm differentially reinforcing you with a gold star. Our DROs, the answer here is not been displayed. Omission of, absence of, not that. Anything but the challenging behavior. So if you see something that doesn't specify incompatible, alternative, or anything having to do with rates, it's going to be your DRO. It's typically a DRO. Okay. Number two, which DR procedure includes one behavior being differentially reinforced and the other behavior on extinction were both of a mutually exclusive response class? Okay, so this one is tricky. This is a DRI because mutually exclusive response class. I can't do both. I can't yell and drink water. Okay, I can't stand on the chair if my bottom's in the chair. Great example I had for this is a child who loves kicking the wall. And so what we did is we made a huge deal about when his feet are on the floor. I posted pictures all over the clinic of his feet being on the floor. And throughout the day, everybody pointed at the picture and said, so and so's feet are on the floor. I love the way your feet are on the floor. Look at Dina, her feet are on the floor. It's incompatible. We reinforce the incompatible behavior. Didn't matter if the function was the same, it was mutually exclusive. Can't do both. FCT is a type of DRO, DRA, DRD, or DRL. And for a bonus, give me an example of FCT that you've used. What's the topography and what's the function? All right, so manding is a great example, and your manding is going to be the function is access to something or maybe escape from something, depends on what it was, what it is. Do I want something or am I trying to man to get out of something? Okay, if you want to increase your rate of RBT exam studying behavior, which DR procedure could you use? DRO, DRH, DRD, or DRL? All right, increase DRH, super. The predetermined criteria that Johnny can earn reinforcement for 5 callouts in 20 minutes is most likely which DR schedule of reinforcement. Is this DRO, DRH, DRD, or DRL? DRD, right, we're decreasing the rate and there's that time component. So we're trying to get to, there is reinforcement when the number of responses in a specified time period is less than or equal to a prescribed limit. So there's your number of responses and then there's the limit. There's a certain amount in a certain time. All right, great. So just to let you know, ABA Study Guide does provide, we have a great RBT study guide, a study manual on sale at the website. It's $20. It goes through the whole task list and gives a mock exam at the end. We also provide RBT exam tutoring, so one-on-one support via Zoom with a BCBA. And then if you are interested in our BCBA exam prep, our April live instruction cohort is enrolling now. Just email ABA Study Guide and go to our website for more info and a discount code. So if anybody has any questions about anything else or would like any more support, any other topics they're interested in learning about, please feel free to reach out to us or message Regina's RE space Gina or me, Trudy Giorgio BCBA, in either of our Facebook groups.